Hello, friends. This is Moonlit Lioness, and we've got Stargazing Sunday here to look at the stars and see what's happening this week in the astrology. I've been busy looking at it, and we definitely have some interesting things coming up this week. Again, some squares that can make conversations or just your own thoughts um, productive, put it that way. We'll just call it productive. Um, so I'm going to share my screen here and show you my slides. And I got away from the slide deck because I was having some issues. So you're going to see my whole everything that's like the controls and all that, but that's fine. So we'll just work with that. Okay, so I was preparing and going through some of my slides and going over stuff, and let's start back at the beginning. All right, so for this week, the week of April 26th, we've got this ongoing theme that I talked about before, and it's going to go on until July, and it's those outer planets, Pluto, Neptune. If you can see my cursor, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, all making this mini trine. So you can see this little triangle here in the middle, and they're all kind of working together, the outer planets, which affect the whole population to rebuild these systems. So we've got an ongoing period of transition where old systems are breaking down and new frameworks are beginning to take shape. That will be a continuing process that will keep going through the end of the summer. And then Uranus here just is at 0 degrees Gemini. It just moved into Gemini last week. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed things seem to be moving more swiftly, not only in my own personal life, but in the national news. So with Uranus newly in Gemini, things are moving more quickly, but not always smoothly, as we will see with some of the aspects we've got this week. So conversations, decisions, and reactions may unfold faster than you are expecting or being able to cope with. It's just moving fast, revealing where adjustments are needed and where growth is already underway. So this is a week of adjustment, not perfection. Just keep that in mind. As far as the moon goes, there's we just came off of a full moon, and the moon is moving in this yellow area here from Sagittarius to Capricorn to Aquarius. And when it gets into here in Sagittarius, it's forming a nice trine to Mars and Saturn and Aries. So it's things feel nice here being in Sagittarius and in a trine to these other planets. Not anything real harsh. However, when the moon gets into this area here, it will become a square to Mars and Saturn. And that's where the conversations are also happening. But the good thing is, with the moon being in Capricorn, the emotional aspects of it are more, they're not so hot and emotional. They're more mental and thinking along the lines of, how am I going to use this? Or, what's this for? What's this conversation about? How am I going to use this to help myself or help them? Or, so it's more constructive, let's say, hopefully. And then, moving into Aquarius, we get into a more kind of stand back kind of approach. And again, it's not so emotional. So it's a good time, to have these conversations with ourselves or with others. The moon is in a good place to support us so we don't get too hot. Me being a Leo rising, sometimes I can get a little bit hot. Okay, so on Monday, there is a Mars square Jupiter. So if you look over here, and I will try to make an arrow to point it out, make a thick arrow. So right here, we've got Mars squaring. There's the red line over here, squaring Jupiter. Oops, I'm moving the whole thing. That's not what I wanted to do. So, well, I'm not going to be able to make my other red line, but over here is Jupiter. And when those two come into a square, we've got this kind of energy. So let me read it for you. This week begins with heightened emotional energy and a tendency to overextend. Strong beliefs or reactions may drive actions that go further than intended, especially in situations that feel personal or significant. So, you know, Mars in Aries is all very impulsive type of energy. You know, Mars is in its home sign, and they both are independent, quick thinking, moving forward sometimes without thinking, impulsive. And then you got that in a square with Jupiter, which is also in a sign that it rules, and it can tend to cause, it can be very nice, but it can also be speculative, especially when you put the two together in a square like this. So it's just going to cause the things that I just mentioned here, possibly. Not for everybody. Some people are going to be more, depending on what your natal chart looks like, it might affect you more or less. Also, just notice where things are escalating quickly. If you are getting in a conversation or you're overthinking something and you're getting emotional about something you're thinking about, just try to breathe and think about this astrology here. And just take a breath and pause and allow it to just settle for a moment, and it'll pass. It'll be okay. If you're dealing with something like that. Let's move on to Tuesday. Tuesday we have a Mercury square Pluto. Mercury is right here. And I don't know, I can try to draw a little line. There we go. There's Mercury. And if you follow the red line from Mercury over to here, you'll find Pluto. So this is the square. And with a square like this, conversations and thoughts carry more intensity today. So you'll notice the other red line is still there. So we've still got this square between Mars and Jupiter. And now we've got another square between Mercury and Pluto. Mercury is how we think and process information. It's conversations, interacting with other people. When it comes into a square with Pluto in Aquarius, you know, it's affecting our sense of self, because Mercury and Pluto is about transformation, deep truths, things like that. And in Aquarius is the systems and friendships that we have. So, you know, something might be said or thought about that comes up to the surface for us in our minds, a deep truth that helps us see ourselves better. So let me read over here. Conversations and thoughts carry more intensity today. There is a pull toward deeper understanding, what's said or left unsaid, which may reveal underlying tensions, truths, or important insights. Pay attention to what feels significant. There is a value in what's being uncovered beneath the surface, because Pluto is taking us through transformation, always, constantly. And when there's an aspect to Pluto, it's something that can fundamentally change the way we see ourselves, the way we think about ourselves. So, okay, next on Wednesday, we have a Pluto retrograde. So after that aspect, that square, Pluto goes retrograde, which is appropriate, because now we're kind of turning inward and thinking about these changes. So as Pluto turns retrograde, the focus shifts inward. The deeper changes already in motion move into a more reflective phase, encouraging reassessment. So if you see something about yourself you don't like, you might think, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Or maybe you see something about yourself you do like, and you're thinking, I need to do more of that. So whatever applies to you, there's a reflection, a time of reflection and assessment of yourself. There is desire to use information for improvement. Okay, so this is about integrating internal revelations. So those are the major things happening this week. At the end of the week, there aren't any more aspects, thank God, because that's enough. And as the moon moves into Aquarius at the end of the week, there's an opportunity to just step back, reflect, and see things more clearly, especially after the earlier tensions that you might have experienced in the week. It doesn't mean you will, it just means you might. The energies are there to support that. What felt reactive at the start of the week can now be understood with greater perspective. This is a good time to process, reflect, and integrate what has come up. So in summary, just this week, as you're going through the week, at the beginning of the week, remember things might come up in conversation or just in your own thoughts. Notice when reactions are rising, give yourself space before responding. Stay open to meaningful conversation, because even though sometimes we might not want to hear what somebody else has to say, even if they feel uncomfortable, it's something important for our growth. So also, what surfaces this week is showing you something important. Pay attention, and clarity comes at the end of the week with perspective. Allow time for things to settle. So that's what I see for the week. Hopefully that helps you, guide you through your week. And I'm going to go ahead and do an astrology read now, or a tarot read, I mean, so that you can see what energies show up in the tarot read to pay attention to. Okay, so let's read on the energies of the week. These are really thick cards, but I've got my Light Seers deck. Again, I used it last week and a read on Friends Friday. So I decided to go ahead and use it again. It's a little bit bigger than the regular card, so it's for my small hands to handle, but shuffle it up. Please tell me about the energies this week and what do we need to know. Okay. Kachina knife, doing Kachina knife. So first card down is us. 9 of Wands. So it looks like we're holding strong. Okay? We've been through it, but we're holding strong here. And this week, we've got the 3 of Wands. And that's nice. So we're stepping out into something new and different. 3 is a step forward on a certain path that maybe you haven't stepped forward on before. And she's looking off into the ocean with her surfboard. She looks like she's taking steps towards that ocean, getting ready to do that. Okay, we've got the Sun in the past, or the intention card. So this community is high vibration, right? You're high vibrational. It's really good. We're facing this week with really good intentions. And then in the middle here at the present, we've got the King of Wands. Again, that's very nice. He's the king of his domain. He's the king of making plans of his work and his work life, because wands represent work, wands represent inspiration, ideas. So we've got to seem to have a command of what's going on this week, whatever little bumps may come into the picture. And then we've got the Empress card here in the future. So it's like we're getting ready to, this week is like prepping us for something new. We're birthing something new. The Empress is also Venus, and Venus didn't come up as one of the aspects this week. Venus is, where is it this week? It is in Gemini. It had been near Uranus, and now it's kind of moving forward in Gemini, and that's very good for communication. So I think what it's saying here is we've got Gemini and Venus, and that's going to help our communications be nicer. It's supporting that. And then we've got the Four of Swords. So this person is resting and recuperating in her home environment. Swords are air and words underneath here. So this is where we're at right now. And then the last card down is the Queen of Cups. So this is somebody who's got a good handle on their emotions, and this especially her intuitive abilities or abilities to connect. She's really connecting well. So I think in this community in particular, we're taking steps forward in our lives to connect better, to intuit better, to commune with the divine, and we are getting ready. We're getting ready to be something, a leader in our own world, as far as that goes. I was looking for information on, this week in particular. So I think this week that this is a big focus for us, is that people watching are just taking steps and preparing for being leaders in their own community when it comes to being spiritual leaders. Let me draw two more. Page of Swords, Nine of Pentacles. Yes, so Page of Swords is the beginning. So we're at, the pages are at the beginning of swords are communications, thoughts, words, etc. So it's like, it kind of makes me think of Mercury. So it's kind of like at the beginning of forming the communities, or at the beginning of emerging in the community. And then you've got the Nine of Pentacles here, which is reaching forward for something better. It's going to result in something better for yourself. Nine of Pentacles is a very nice card, where you're going to actually be able to build something for yourself from this process. Okay, well, this turned out to be more than a week's worth of read, but I think hopefully it was helpful. I think it was a message that had to be said this week for whatever reason. So I hope that helps you, and I hope you have a great week. And I hope to see you again on Wednesday when I do a What's the Word Wednesday, where I read on topics in the news. So I'll see you again on Wednesday.